Hello everyone and welcome to this sponsored video. We have been sponsored by Rebellion Development, who are the developers behind Sniper Elite version 2 Remastered, which is now out on the Nintendo Switch, as you also can find out in the description down below. They support my trip to Japan, E3 and other plans that are also going ahead. We have a bunch of productions that need funding, and this is a way to fund it. And it's also a way for me to talk a little bit about my family history, which is closely attached to the history that we find within Sniper Elite version 2, namely the fall of Nazi Germany and the race for the Nazi German scientists.
And as you can tell, I'm just the guy playing this, so don't worry about me.
Joseph is playing. He will be adding some commentary on the game and the gameplay based on as he plays. Well, I'll be sharing a little bit of family history and how we got to the situation where US troops and Soviet troops are hunting for the Nazi scientists for use in the upcoming Cold War, which in many ways is about to begin shortly after the fall of Nazi Germany. So the history in many ways begins in 1939 when the two dictatorships, Nazi Germany and Soviet Union, carved Poland between each other. First Nazi Germany invaded, then Soviet Russia. Poland ended up under Nazi occupation, and in that part that my family was from, because you may not know this, half of my family, on my mother's side, is Polish. And they lived in the city of Lodz, which had a big population of Jews before the war in pre-war Poland. To clarify, my family in Poland before the war were not Jewish. They were Polish Catholics, but their neighbors were very often Jews. And when the war started, my grandmother at the time was just 10 years old when the war broke out. She was born in 1930. So she stayed naturally with her family. The same was with my Polish grandfather, who was 11 at the time. But her brothers, Józef and Kazik, they were above the military age, and in order to not get arrested by the Germans, who suspected all Poles of being part of the resistance, then they either had to go to the resistance themselves, which my uncle Kazik did, and he fought in the partisans, as you can see on the screen right now, while my other uncle, he was unfortunately unlucky and ended up in a German roundup and then was transported for forced labor in Vienna, Austria. And there he met his future fiancée and wife, who, following the invasion, because the thing about Poland was that Western Poland and Central Poland was taken over by Nazi Germany, which was settled, as you can see from the gameplay, in Berlin. Mm-hmm. While the Jewish family, which after the war became part of my family, they lived in the city of Lvov, which was taken over by the Soviet Union. So when Soviet Union was invaded by the Nazi Germany, these pre-war Polish territories were also overrun. And I have no idea how this happened, but she was incredibly lucky because she managed to get out of the city before her family was forced into the ghetto in the city of Lvov. And instead of ending up there and just like the rest of her family being deported to the extermination camp and then gassed to death by Nazi Germany and the SS in the camp of Belzec, she ended up also for forced labor, since they didn't know she was Jewish, in Vienna. And
got him right in the kidney.
We got a very nice example of how to kill Nazis.
Exactly. Just aim and shoot, man. Just be wary of the, oh no, they're shooting at me now I gotta go. But just be aware of the wind speed, the gravity, all that good stuff. I'm playing on normal mode right now, and that's of course easier than like hard and stuff. But the harder difficulty that you go, the more advanced the sniping is in this game, and that's something I think I might restart this game later and play on a harder difficulty, but we'll see about that. I'm kind of a wimp, so I like to play games for fun.
I have to point out that the graphics actually look quite good.
Yes.
For a remastered title, like you played Assassin's Creed 3 recently,
Yes.
and I think this definitely matched up to the remastered footage of that. Oh shit,
Yes.
that's
Oh,
a
no,
tiger.
that's a tank.
That's a tiger.
No,
Be
no.
careful.
Gotta go. Go prone. No, go prone. There we go. Yeah, this definitely looks better than Assassin's Creed 3, of course, but that's an open world game. This is not, but it looks really great for a Switch game.
Oh shit, that tiger is after you.
Yep, I'm out of here, boys. We gotta go. This ain't it.
In the
Chief.
ruins of Berlin.
Yes.
Yeah, aren't you supposed to be sniping?
Yeah,
people
well-
and not get any attention to yourself.
Well, this is a scripted event. I can't control it.
Well, we are playing the prologue, as you can see in the ruins of Berlin during the siege of the city. For now, we are fighting Nazi German troops, but there are also Soviet troops because they're trying to get hold of the scientists.
Goddamn Soviets.
There are a few objectives. You are supposed to get the scientists that are willing to cooperate with the US, with you, and
I'll mute this right now.
and assassinate the scientists that want to work with the Soviets. Because the Cold War is about to begin, and there's a lot of tension involved with this game. And why did the US get so skeptical of the Soviet Union? Because at the time when the US joined the war after the attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941, the US and Soviet Union were allies. The US provided a ton of equipment, technology like the technology that would eventually result in the Jeep, and also some of the technology of the tanks used by the Soviet Union. So technology-wise, the US contributed also on the Eastern Front this way. Naturally, the Soviets did the entire man jump.
Got a stealth kill.
Close to 15 million Soviet troops died on the route to Berlin. This is pretty much the conclusion of that long campaign. And on that campaign, they were reaching Poland, where my uncle was a partisan in the forest outside of Warsaw, and another uncle of mine on the mother's father's side again. He was living in Warsaw and part of the young scouting ranks, which were doing type of what would I call it? Adolescent partisan activities in the city of Warsaw. And he also took part in the Warsaw uprising, which was an event where the Polish resistance, or the Home Army, Armia Krajowa, they rose up against the German Nazi occupier shortly before the Russians were about to reach the city, because they didn't trust the Russians. The Russians had murdered Polish officers in the forests of Katyn in 1940, long before the war between Nazi Germany and Soviet Union
We still don't trust the Russians.
broke out. And the Poles were just skeptical. They had broken diplomatic relations because the Russians didn't want to admit. They blamed the Germans for the murder of the officers, even though the evidence was overwhelming. So when the Russians were about to reach Warsaw, they
And
simply
I failed
stopped.
miserably.
Yeah.
There we go.
they simply stopped. They waited for the Nazi Germans, as you can see in the game,
Yeah.
to round up the Poles and crush the resistance. And with it, the capital city of Poland, Warsaw, which was destroyed in 85%. It was the biggest uprising and pretty much the biggest non-Soviet combat against the Nazi Germans on the Eastern Front, all the way until the Battle of Berlin, where the Soviets were fearing, and for a good reason, that Western allies were about to catch up with them and also get a hand in the taking of Berlin
Boom.
and killing of Nazi soldiers.
I did not see that coming. Got it.
So you can see this game is definitely a mature game.
Yes, and you can't play it like I'm playing it, like a Call of Duty sort of game,
No.
because you got to use. You're a sniper. Snipers don't go in guns blazing. This ain't Call of Duty 4. That mission, all gillied up. No, this is more than that. You got to use your binoculars. Got to make sure you know where you're going. And you got to make sure you don't get caught like I keep doing. So there's that. There's
Exactly.
that little can of worms to open for you.
Exactly. So the Soviets in the game are pretty much like the Germans are naturally the antagonists, but at the same time, the objectives of getting the scientists, they're Germans. They're German Nazi scientists, and it's your job to prevent that they fall into the hands of the Soviets. So sometimes you will also have to kill Red Army soldiers and officers in order to prevent that important scientists end up in their hands and will then conspire against the free world a few years later.
I see some bad guys over there. They are dead.
Indeed.
They will not see me coming.
So the game takes place in turn of April 1945, weeks before the surrender. I guess you can...
I'll snipe these boys right now.
Or maybe not, because there's a number of them.
Yeah, well...
So maybe sneak up a little bit closer and we'll see. So where was my family at the time? At the time, my family was, the people who had survived, because one of the family members ended up arrested by the Germans, and when the Soviet Russians were about to overrun them and the prison where they put him,
about to get a headshot here.
They were killing all prisoners, and he hid in a barrel with cucumbers. Unfortunately, everything was set ablaze, so he boiled alive in this barrel.
That's morbid.
Absolutely horrifying way to die. And while my uncle in Vienna was waiting for the liberation, the Soviets were at the same time fighting in Vienna as they were fighting in Berlin, because there was a race to reach the capitals of Germany and Austria, because the division of Europe was also taking place at the same time. Stalin wanted to reach as far as possible and get as much of German technology, German scientists, which also this game is pretty much all about.
Yeah, I wasn't listening, I was playing. Capturing the German scientists, saving them, what's going on?
Yeah, the question is, I guess you'll be able to see them wearing something else than a military uniform when...
The question is, will I make it out of this alive? Because I botched everything up. At that point I just say, screw it, I'm gonna die and then start over and do this.
Yeah,
right.
You better hope that the Soviets didn't find you, because Americans are not supposed to be in Berlin.
Exactly. Let me restart this entire mission, because I want to play it correctly and not like a scrub.
Sniping.
Exactly. I'd love to play this in handheld mode too. That'd be great. The Switch needs more shooters like this, I would say.
Absolutely, and this is more of an exercise of patience.
Yes.
Too, where you're rewarded for finding the right position, setting up the target, and then getting that perfect shot.
Yes, exactly.
For those brutal but realistic X-ray scans.
Yes.
They pretty much show what happens when a bullet hits
you. Hits the body.
Hits the body, hits the organs, and so on.
Let them bodies hit the flow. Alright, I'm gonna duck behind that motorcycle. No, don't sprint. No, don't sprint, what did I tell you?
So yeah.
Why is he sprinting? Oh, I know, because I hit the button.
And the Soviets you couldn't really trust the Soviets for a number of reasons, because they were overrunning country after country. Even countries that were independent and democratic before the war. People were naturally happy that they had survived the war. Like I mentioned, my future Jewish aunt, she was the only one from her family to survive, just because she was able to get out of the city before the rest of her family was placed in the ghetto and then deported and murdered by the Nazis in the extermination camp close by to the city. And yeah, the Nazi Germans were just awful. So don't feel bad when we kill them here.
Don't feel bad at all. Oh my goodness. Alright, now I snuck past these guys because I remember getting attacked by a sniper last time because I did not succeed in stealth killing someone like I'm about to successfully succeed killing this guy right here. 10 points for that. Now let's bust out
a real
these...
assassin.
Yeah, let's bust out these binocs.
Sniper Elite version 2 Remastered is out on the Nintendo Switch.
Yes,
Based on our experiences so far, it plays really well.
Yes.
You have not experienced any frame rate drops as far.
None whatsoever.
The gameplay seems to be very solid, and yeah, as we mentioned, it's pretty much the Mortal Kombat of shooters. Has a very interesting premise: the end of World War II in Eastern Front, the siege of Berlin, and from a little bit of a different perspective than it usually is portrayed, where it's just the Soviet army storming pretty much the last German positions that are left and trying to reach the Hitler before he shoots himself.
Yeah, exactly. But he did, because he's a coward.
Yeah.
Oh well. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'd like to thank our patrons, including royal producers Kenyatta Ali and Bradley Carriage.
And naturally, Rebellion Entertainment for sponsoring this video.
Exactly. So check out Sniper Elite V2 on the Switch.
Definitely do it. Check the link in the description down below, and it's a very good game. You will not regret getting it.
All right. We'll see you guys later.
We'll see you in the next video.
Bye-bye.